people picture the fall of Rome, they imagine barbarian armies charging through broken gates, Roman legions crushed in muddy fields, and emperors poisoned in torchlit marble halls. But empires rarely die the way movies show them. Real collapse is quieter, slower, and much more internal. Long before swords and fire finish an empire, something else kills it from within: its money. Rome didn't fall only because of invaders or corruption. It fell because its currency collapsed. And when the money of an empire dies, everything else follows. For centuries, Rome's economy rested on a single coin, the silver denarius. First minted around 201 BC, the early denarius was nearly pure silver. Trusted, stable, and respected across the ancient world. Soldiers were paid in it. Merchants demanded it. Ordinary citizens stored their life savings in it. The denarius wasn't just money. It was confidence made tangible. As long as people trusted the coin, they trusted Rome. And as long as they trusted Rome, they had faith in the coin. But running the largest empire in the ancient world was expensive. Borders stretched from the Sahara to Scotland, from Spain to Syria. Every piece of that empire required funding. Massive armies guarding the frontier, roads and aqueducts connecting cities, grain subsidies feeding restless populations, and endless wars draining the treasury. By the 2nd century AD, Rome was struggling to pay for it all. Tax revenues couldn't keep pace with military spending. Instead of raising taxes or cutting costs, emperors turned to a more subtle trick: debasement. Debasement was the silent death of the denarius. Emperors reduced the silver content of the coin while keeping its appearance roughly the same, hoping citizens wouldn't notice. The numbers reveal the truth. Under Augustus, the denarius was about 95% silver. By Caracalla's reign, it had dropped to around 50%. By Gallienus in the mid-3rd century, it had plunged below 5%. Coins that once were solid silver became bronze discs dipped in silver wash. People could feel the fraud in their hands: lighter, cheaper, emptier coins. Once money loses real value, prices begin to rise. Inflation swept through the empire like a slow poison. Wheat, meat, cloth, tools, everything jumped in cost. A loaf of bread that once cost a single denarius now required many. This wasn't abstract economic theory. It crushed the lives of ordinary Romans. Soldiers demanded higher pay because their wages bought less. Merchants refused debased coins, turning instead to barter or to gold. Farmers abandoned their land rather than pay taxes in worthless money. Local economies reverted to direct trade because the imperial currency was no longer trusted. The more confidence eroded, the more emperors debased the currency to fund their obligations. Rome entered a vicious cycle, the same inflationary spiral that would repeat in every major collapse since. This crisis exploded during the infamous 3rd century. Rome thought it could cheat its people with coins that looked the same, but held less real value. Modern governments attempt the same trick in different forms: printing paper money, manipulating interest rates, expanding digital balances. The tools changed. Human behavior didn't. The collapse of Roman money is not an isolated tragedy. It is a blueprint that has repeated across centuries. After World War I, Germany faced crushing reparations under the Treaty of Versailles. Instead of raising taxes or producing more, the government turned to the printing press, flooding the economy with paper marks. The more they printed, the less each mark was worth, just as Rome had produced more coins with less silver. By 1923, hyperinflation exploded. A loaf of bread that cost 1 mark before the war cost over 200 billion marks. People carried wages home in wheelbarrows. Life savings evaporated. Middle-class families were ruined. Those with debts saw them vanish. Those with real assets in land, factories, foreign currency became wealthy. But the ordinary worker lost everything, and in that desperation, political extremism flourished, paving the way for Hitler. The fall of money became the fall of society. Zimbabwe repeated the same cycle in the early 2000s. After land seizures and economic disruption, the government printed money to cover deficits. By 2008, inflation reached a mind-shattering level, 89.7 sextillion%. Prices doubled every day. Shops changed price tags multiple times daily. Eventually, Zimbabwe abandoned its own currency entirely and forced citizens to use US dollars and South African rand. Another nation learned that you cannot fake value forever. But collapse doesn't always look like wheelbarrows and billion-dollar bills. Sometimes it's slower, quieter, and easier to ignore. In 1971, The United States severed the last tie between the dollar and gold. From that moment, the dollar became a fiat currency, valuable only because people trust the government behind it. Once again, the temptation to spend beyond limits became irresistible. Government debt soared. Central banks expanded the money supply and pushed interest rates down. Inflation became constant. A dollar from 1971 now requires more than $6 to match its purchasing power. The bills look the same, but their value has been hollowed out. This is debasement in slow motion. The same story as Rome, just stretched across decades instead of years. Governments hide inflation behind reassuring narratives. They call it growth. They claim higher wages mean prosperity, even though costs rise faster. They label debt investment even when it funds consumption. They point to stock market highs, even though most citizens own little or nothing in the market. The trick is always the same: disguise the erosion of money. The value is removed quietly while citizens blame rising prices instead of broken currency.